I didn't know this because I don't know much about boats and naval stuff until we've been
me
doing
neither,
this.
to be honest.
The galley is a disgrace. It should not be accessible by England. It was literally never used. It was, and the reason for that is that this is a boat. In fact, let me bring up the image for those of you who are watching, but for those of you who aren't, it's okay. So what you're looking at in this image is actually a cog, not a galley, which is far more appropriate and was used in England. A galley is used with oars. You know, if you imagine like the way, I don't know, like Romans used to, row and all this kind of stuff. It's useful in calm waters and predictable waters. But the English Channel is not calm. It's not predictable. The winds are very intense. And that's why in the image you can see, with people who can see this, is there's actually a really big sail. And it's good at catching wind. So they don't move around with the oars. They move around by catching winds in the sail, primarily. So for those listening, just imagine like a banana-shaped boat, but at the back, there's a platform, a raised platform, and one big sail on the front.
It's also, you can imagine the fact of all these guys committed to rowing this boat, whereas a sail is just when it's the windy weather, the speed you're getting from a singular sail versus a load of guys who could be firing things, defending all these sort of things they could be doing instead they're rowing instead of just a sail doing the job for you.
Exactly. So while galley was very much used around there in the Mediterranean, basically it's a Mediterranean ship and it's very effective for very, very long periods of time. It was absolutely not used in Western Europe. I mean, I guess French had access to the Mediterranean, so obviously if they're going in that direction, they may have. But not in the English Channel. With the English Channel, they used cogs. And that back platform raised that I talked about would be filled with longbow, and they'd be just firing at French ships, essentially. For those of you who are watching, on the right, I have a Lego rendition of the cog, which I thought was really cool. And they even have the coat of arms of the House of Plantagenet. I think I might have said it right this time.
I will say that sounds different to every time you also previously said it as well. Or maybe that's just my memory of how you said it.
So. Let's move on. Right, with that, we're going to jump into our first main segment, which is all about the structures. This is I say our first main segment, the main segment of this episode, which is the structures, the buildings, the historical landmarks that are featured in the game and their real life equivalent. And we're going to start with Lancaster Castle. Now, those of you who play the game don't get PTSD. It's okay. It's not that bad in real life, all right? So its early history is quite unclear. It may have been founded in the 11th century on the site of a Roman fort overlooking the River Lune. So for those of you who are who do have visuals, you're just looking at a picture of the front of the House of Lancaster on the top left image. The bottom image is like a sort of bird's eye view. And on the top right is the castle in-game. Again, listeners, it just looks like a castle. I don't know what else to tell you, Monkey Nuts. It's got like the entrance, like the arch.
It is a gorgeous castle, and actually, I didn't know what it looked like before. Obviously, seeing in-game and seeing the real one by looking at the pictures when we did research from it, when we were looking at them, we were looking at the images. I was like, wow, this is a really cool castle.
Right above the main arch entrance, there's like a sort of statue. It's not like a gargoyle because it's like a man, not like a monster, but it's kind of like the way gargoyles stick out of walls. It looks quite like cool and gothic and maybe even religious. There's a guy standing there, and in the game they've also nailed that. They've also got that in there as well. So really a good attention to detail there, I think.
I don't think gargoyles have to be ugly. I don't think that's.
Do they not? Gargoyles can be like angels and stuff as well, or just regular people.
Yeah, not necessarily angels, but because it's. I think because I can't remember. There's difference between grotesques and gargoyles. There's let's not go into this now. It's too much of a tangent. But
I'm cool. I mean, I'd like to learn about it. That's interesting. In the bottom image, of course, is that bird's eye view where you see obviously a very large structure today. Of course, in the game, they scale these things down, so you know they don't have like that much grandeur to them. But yeah, so yeah, a Roman fort. Think of it. Romans built this thing, and it's seen a lot of action. So it's it wasn't fully built in the way it looks now when the Romans, as in it started as a fort and was expanded upon. Just thought I'd clarify that. Like with many things, it's going to be the theme in this episode. I don't know about you, Monkey Nuts, but in my research, I saw that a lot. Buildings were constructed out of wood or something, and then later they were made into stone, and they're really important today, kind of thing.
I think with these sort of things as well especially you can see the condition of this implies that there is a lot of later rebuilds, later
Yeah.
a lot of work has been done on it in not necessarily modern times, but sometimes like the 1800s even. They did a lot of work to rebuild these castles and kind of in
Well,
some of Britain's golden ages in that sense where they've done that sort of thing.
so yeah, I'm glad you say that because it's seen a lot of action. So it probably did have to have a lot of repairs. It endured invasions by the Scots many times. It was a huge part of the English Civil War, not the Wars of the Roses. This is another civil war that happened more recently, happened way after. And it was a big part of that as well in terms of a point of power to be held. And it was actually used as a prison for the last few hundred years. So, and all the way until 2011. 2011,
Really?
they closed the prison. Yeah.
Whoa.
So there are paintings of this thing from the 1800s of it being a prison, basically, from the outside, and people being like walked in down that main archway there. Of course, there weren't cars like in this image. There were horse and carriage.
Because I was saying it would be fun to visit this place, and if it'd been 2010, it probably wouldn't have been so fun to visit.
yeah. 2010, I don't know. Especially not 2011. Maybe like, they were getting a bit laxed because they knew they were closing. You know, they were like, it's okay, we'll let him go. We don't need that thing anyway. So, yeah, I think now it's like a sort of, one of those things where you can go and walk around and they show you around. Like a museum, maybe museum.
It is, it's still, that's the only definition of it, really.
Yeah, so it's very cool. That's all I've got, really, for Lancaster Castle. So I'll hand over to you, Monkey Nuts, because you want to talk to us about the Abbey of Kings.
The Abbey of Kings, or also known in the modern day as Westminster Abbey. So I've got a nice, for the images I'm showing you here, I've got a nice here, that is King Henry V on the left, and that is his what's the word for it? His burial place in Westminster Abbey. That's it on the left there. And I've got two images of the one in-game and then one from the real Westminster Abbey on the right-hand side. And it is a very ornate building. It is. To be honest, I've never actually been to Westminster Abbey. Have you ever been?
I actually haven't. Shall we go? I actually think that thing looks magnificent. So just to sort of
really
describe it to people who aren't looking, the Westminster Abbey.
I don't know how accessible it is the only thing, because it obviously holds so many.
It's quite expensive. It's like £28 a ticket or something. Which I don't know what other countries are like, but in the UK usually these things are free. So it's it's a bit of a surprise. But yeah, imagine like how do I even describe this gorgeous building? Like almost like a plus.
It's very gothic. It's very gothic in its styling.
It's shaped like a cross. I just noticed.
Yes, yeah. That's a very it is. It's very common of the time that they would have done that. They did the cross formation. It is the building supposed to be that representation of the cross.
Damn, that's gorgeous. Yeah, if anyone's on the move listening, and you've never seen this building, just Google. At one point, just Google Westminster Abbey. It looks awesome. Yep. And in terms of the burial site that Monkey Nuts was referring to, it's just like. It's like it's like his head is like a coffin but made of metal.
Yeah. It is a full body, the real thing. But this is just a nice image of his head.
And Henry V. A
nice image of his head.
Yeah, Henry V. If I remember correctly, Monkey Nuts, you were telling us in the last episode is the best one. I'm like he was
Warrior King.
The Warrior King. Yeah. He was the one who whooped a lot of French. During the 100 Years' War,
he whooped, but he took a lot of land.
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
So he is the only Lancastrian king who is buried in Westminster Abbey, which is actually more on the unusual side because we have 30 kings and queens buried in there. So in essence, it's actually more interesting that there's less kings and queens in the abbey than there is one there is in there.
Yeah, that's
so
weird.
His is more the expected thing. So his dad, Henry IV, they're all Henrys, don't worry, it's quite simple. His dad, Henry IV, he actually specifically requested to be buried in Canterbury. It's in Canterbury Cathedral. He's the only monarch who's been buried ever in Canterbury Cathedral. Okay. A specific request.
And I was going to talk about that a bit, and I actually missed that in my research. So I'm glad I didn't know he was buried there, Henry IV. So that's actually pretty cool. We'll come back to that. When we get there, but yeah, that's cool. And Henry VI.
So Henry VI was buried in Westminster Abbey.
Okay.
So here's actually when we talked about. So I'll go back to what we talked about in the previous episode. He's been known as the Mad King. So he had, I can't remember, it was some form of schizophrenia that was that also was debilitating in terms of it made him kind of give some rigor mortis at points, and it was pretty bad. And he was apparently, by the way, quite pious, known as quite he seemed to be a good guy who should have never, ever, ever been king. Like, he didn't have bad intentions. This guy should have just never been the king of anywhere. However, so after his death, he actually had a cult following.
Really?
So he was actually seen as, he was starting, because he was assassinated in the Tower of London. He was being seen as a martyr and a saint.
Okay.
So they were having, like, basically pilgrimages to Westminster Abbey during the War of the Roses to go see his. He also got given a really, like, kind of toned down crypt. So he's given the most basic crypt they could. So he was started to be seen as this real martyr. So one of the Yorkist kings moved his body to Windsor, and kind of, like, basically gave him much more trying to restrict people's ability to go see him as this martyr,
wow. So
see him as a saint.
He was a threat, so they wanted to move him somewhere less significant.
Yeah. So, like, during his rule, he was absolutely hated, and history is not being kind to him. But there's one little period where he's revered.
So just a reminder for those who missed the previous episode, again, Monkey Nuts, correct me if I'm remembering what you were saying wrong. But Henry VI was a king with severe mental disabilities, and under his rule, England lost the 100 Years' War.
Absolutely, we lost entire control of France. We had so much of France. He was heir to the French throne. He should have been England's next coming. He could have united England and France, but he was useless.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. And I don't know if I'm treading on any of your future topics, but I remember you were saying, like, to me, like, we try not to reveal anything about what we've prepped beforehand, but naturally, as part of organizing the show, we do need to just say, oh, have you done this bit? Are you okay with this bit? Kind of thing. And you mentioned to me that, like, there maybe it's like an alternate timeline where Henry VI maybe didn't have those disabilities, and maybe there was, like, a kingdom of England and France. Maybe a far greater united kingdom and a very different a timeline, perhaps.
Hey, we got teasers. The next episode, I will be going into a bit more about that. That is it. That's how the relation between Lancaster and Westminster Abbey.
All right, cool.
So moving back to you.
Yeah, so I'm going to cover everyone's favourite, which is Berkshire Palace. So Berkshire...
Said correctly.
Yes, said correctly. Yes, everyone says Berkshire online. No, it's pronounced Berkshire, guys. Okay, don't ask why. It just is pronounced Berkshire. However, the real-life equivalent that they based this building on actually is not in Berkshire, which is an area of England which is in the south, not too far from London. If you've ever heard of Reading, that's Berkshire, right? So the real-life version of this is called Clifford's Tower, and it's in York, funnily enough, given the whole topic of the Wars of the Roses and stuff like that. So the Clifford Tower is in York. It was originally, now get this, unlike Lancaster Castle, we have details on this. Monkey Nuts, get ready, okay? This is, I don't know, for me it blew my mind, right? Originally built by William the Conqueror in 1068. Probably not personally, I reckon there were other people doing the heavy lifting, but they never get any credit in this kind of stuff. Good old George broke his back on that, but he's not going to get a mention in today's video. So it was built in 1068, but it was then rebuilt in stone in the 13th century. So it was made of wood originally, a wooden keep, and it was rebuilt in stone in the 13th century after the wooden keep was destroyed. So, and I just want to take a quick tangent because I find it interesting, like, just how many things, as I kind of alluded to earlier, were originally built with wood and then later became what we know them as today. And I want to go on a wild, like, I'm not going to go too deep, I'm just going to go really off topic here, guys. But the Great Wall of China, we think of it as the way we think of it now as in stone, was originally wood. And I just think...
Really? Yeah. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. So look out for
I've been there as well. It was not mentioned, but to be fair, it might have been mentioned, but it might have been in Mandarin, and I wouldn't have known what it was saying.
I always forget you've been to China. That's cool. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to our Chinese episode at some point, as in the Chinese civilization, not us speaking Chinese. that's not going to work out. We can't even pronounce Plantagenet, but Plantagenet or whatever, mate. Let's move on. So so I just think that's really cool. Like, so the 13th century. So even if you're like, oh, okay, so it's not really the same thing that William the Conqueror built. I mean, I would say it is, and clearly a lot of other people say it is, but I can see an argument for that. But even still, it was built in the 13th century, so some point in the 1200s. That's like 800 or so years ago, roughly. or if you want to count from William the Conqueror, it's almost 1,000 years ago now. This thing was built, and it's still there in York today. And if you ever, York's actually a really beautiful city as well. I think.
Yeah.
Can't say I spent too much time there, but I've been there a couple of times, like in passing, and it's just.
It's a walled city. It's still got its old city walls from.
Oh really?
Back in again. Yeah.
Without going
worth a visit. The walls.
Too far off topic, I believe it was also like the Viking stronghold in the country. Like it was like the capital of Danelaw, essentially. I think it was like the first like area they set up. So yeah. Anyway, that's perhaps a topic for the English as a whole civilization video. Maybe not for or podcast, I should say. Maybe not for today. But yeah, and it does raise the question, and again, I'm the tangent king, I know, but it does make you think, like, if something was completely rebuilt, is it the same thing? And I wanted to delve a little bit into the philosophy of identity here, just to indulge me, monkey nuts, right? Honestly, okay. Do you count it? Like, if I told you that Clifford's tower was in wood and it's completely replaced with stone, is that still Clifford's tower?
So also, even you say completely replaced with stone, every single stone keep will still have had some wooden structures within it, because they don't replace everything within it in wood. There'll still be some sort of, and I can tell you now, there'll still be some wooden thing. Maybe nowadays it's not going to have done. What is the boat of Theseus? This is the whole philosophy.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to ask you. Are you talking about is that the one where the ship sails around the world?
The ship where every part was replaced. Is it still the same ship?
So I'm gonna.
I personally, so this is my opinion. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is, because the identity of the object remains, even if you unless you completely tear it down, every single scrap, you remove every possible object that is there. Maybe then, but if you keep anything of the originality of it, you make it into something. You can make it something new, but I still think that part remains. And I'd like to think of that history continuing. It's like the human body is actually a really good example of it.
Yeah.
You are not the same as you were, because all your cells are dying, being replaced.
True. Yeah. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago, not just mentally, but like physically. Yeah. All your cells at some point have been replaced. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. And for those of you who don't know the boat thing, I don't want to dwell too much on this because I'm looking at our recording time and it's getting a bit long. But the boat is essentially just, I'm gonna maybe butcher it a bit, but in short, imagine you're in ancient Greece or whatever, and there's this boat and it goes to sail around the world. And back then or whatever, they didn't sail around the world, but like it would have taken a really long time, right? So on its really long epic journey, at some point throughout the journey, every single piece of wood, every single piece of fabric, sail, at some point in the many year-long journey was replaced. The crew had aged, passed on, maybe some of them stayed in their places and lived there. Eventually the crew was replaced, the captain was replaced, one by one, slowly over the decade, 2 decades, whatever. Eventually they make it all the way back to Greece, and there they are, and the question is it the same boat? That's the question. Like, is it the same boat? It doesn't have a single nail, not even one nail in this hypothetical philosophical scenario. Is the same. So is it the same boat? And I think interesting discussion. But one for another podcast maybe. So let us know what you think. If you got any comments or whatever, feel free to drop them in in whatever comment section your form of media allows.
Yeah, argue with us. We love it. Yeah, tell us what you think instead.
We love it.
Say we're wrong. Say no, it's not the same ship. Everything's gone. Everything's replaced.
I mean, I'm actually going to be really boring here and actually clash with you, and I'm actually just going to say that I don't believe because identity is a subjective human-made thing. I don't believe there is an answer. It's just whatever we want it to be. And again, I know that's a cop-out. I should say is it or is it not? But in my opinion, it's whoever. It doesn't matter. Like it's whatever your opinion is the right answer, because it's just a made-up thing anyway.
So I say for the ship though, just one last thing, on this, which is because you are replacing it to the same. So I think actually there's a difference between the castle versus the ship. The castle, if it's completely the stones torn down, they're building it completely differently. Whereas with the ship, you have to replace a board at a time. You're still having to keep exactly, even though you've replaced everything, you still have to maintain what it looks like, how it feels, and you have to replace it in the same kind of principle manner it was the bit you pulled off.
True.
Which I think is what keeps its identity. Yeah. But that would be my final point. Again, feel free to let us know what you guys think.
Oh, sorry, I'm not going to let us move on. One last one. I'm going to challenge you, because you say it's the same shit.
Okay.
I'm going to really challenge your brain here, okay?
Go on.
What if, I'm going to throw in one extra question. What if the name of the ship also changed at some point? Does that change your answer? The new
No.
captain came on and changed the name of the ship.
That's the man-made concept of it. I think that the core of the ship is the ship, not what we name it. So that's a very human way. I think what you're doing is a very human way of going. I identify it with a name because you could change. You could just call another thing the same name. That's not the same object. Whereas it's not. I don't think it's the name that gives it kind of that permanence. I think the permanence is gained from the core principles of what it is, which is, I believe, the structure.
Fair enough.
And my concept of it.
Let's get that. Well, let's let our audience decide, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So the next one is also me, and it'll be very brief here. It's Wynguard Palace, as it's called in the game, but in real life, it's Hampton Court Palace. This is in London. It's in West London. I think in the towards Surrey, basically. It's in the borough of Kingston, if you've ever heard of it, if you're familiar with London. And it's actually really lovely. I was there not too long ago by chance. And it's actually really awesome. It's a very large building. It's very beautiful. However, it has no relevance to the House of Lancaster. Absolutely nothing. In fact, it wasn't even built. It hadn't been built yet. It was built in the Tudor era, not long after the House of Lancasters. But nothing to do with that. So I'm not sure why they decided to keep this in the game for House of Lancaster. It is a mistake. It's maybe just because they,
just have anything else to replace it with, I guess.
Money reasons, asset reasons.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but because this did already exist for the English civilization, and they I don't know. Yeah, so it's a mistake. I'd like to see them change that at some point. And we'll dive into it in more detail in a future episode where we cover the English civilization as a whole. But for now, let's move on to King's College, Monkey Nuts.
King's College. So King's College, just to clarify, first of all, this is King's College, Cambridge, because there's also a King's College in London. No relation. This is King's College in Cambridge. So again, image of the one in game and the one in real life. I actually think, by the way, this is one of the ones they've done a really good job, even better than some of the Westminster Abbey game. I think it looks a bit more basic, whereas this, I think they've done a really good job. It looks,
in terms of
the asset looks really stunning.
That's really cool, yeah.
And the one in real life looks just really cool. You were saying before that you'd like to go see it.
Yeah,
I've been there before. I haven't been inside. I've only been on the outside.
But what I want to do is I want to go and film. I want to go to all of the landmarks. Across the country, and film like a video like Monkey Nuts, Skillionaire Monkey Nuts on tour. Let's go, going indoor, exploring it. If that's the kind of thing you'd like to see, please let us know. I mean, I get that would be separate from the podcast, of course. That would be on the YouTube channel because it's very visual heavy. But let us know. So,
unshockingly, King's College was founded by a king, King Henry VI, which is the Mad King, is the easy way to describe him as. So you might be thinking, the Mad King, he's done something good. He made a college. Nah, it was commissioned by his dad.
Okay.
His dad did all the work. It was just...
Yeah. My question was, how did someone with such a severe mental illness actually even do this? But yeah, okay, so that. Gotcha.
Yeah, no. Nothing related to him. It was just his dad. He was just the king at the time. So it's founded by him, but nothing related to the construction of it. But did you know the King's College is actually linked with Eton College?
I do not know that. Maybe explain briefly what Eton College is for our non-English listeners.
Okay, so Eton College is a very it's a home of, so a lot of our politicians went to school there. It is a very expensive private school. It is for what we call secondary school, so that's I think ages 11 to 17, 18.
16, and this includes sixth form, and then it goes to 18. Yep.
It does have it there as well. Yep. It's 17, 18, which is why specifically it's linked to King's College, because until 1865, the only people who attended King's College were Etonians.
Really? Oh, I did not know that.
They were the only people who attended, and it was basically they were built in tandem together to be like you go from one to the other. So so Eton College is it's very expensive.
So King's College in Cambridge. Yeah. I don't know much about Cambridge University, to be honest. And just in case anyone else doesn't know, for some crazy reason, Cambridge University is the best university in the UK, or maybe Oxford University would disagree.
Those two
one
fight
or the
out.
other. It's kind of like our Harvard, if you probably heard about that, even the US, whatever. But so what is King's College's connection to does it have a connection to Cambridge University?
So basically, Cambridge University, and I believe also Oxford University, they are actually a collection of colleges. So all these different colleges. So if you go, I'm going to Cambridge University. You then sign up to, you become part of one of the colleges.
Okay.
So they're the place you live. They're the place. So everyone who goes to those universities goes, all right, I've gone to Cambridge. Great. Now, which college am I going to be joining? So at the time, if you were an Etonian, you would have gone, I don't even have to try and get in. I have my place signed, sealed, delivered. I'm going to King's College.
Oh.
It wasn't a choice. You just went, I'm going from Eton. I'm going to King's College. That is my path.
Cool. Yeah.
And then, not until, which is, again, I thought it was later than I expected. 1865, which was, I thought if it was going to be changed, it might be a bit more recent than that.
You overestimate the 1800s.
I know.
But you know what? Who knows, mate? These lot going through King's College.
But even then, it was like the first few people who were allowed. It wasn't until like long after that there wasn't. I think it was still into the 1900s. It wasn't still almost Etonians were given a free place there, and then it was other people were allowed in. It was still
okay. That's cool. All right, awesome. Moving on to it's your topic again, my friend. It's the White Tower. That's what it's called in game.
The White Tower. So the White Tower, or Tower of London, which is, again, to be honest, there's not much to speak about it. If you want to hear more about the Tower of London, go back to the previous episode. I talked about Henry VI's assassination. Not a huge amount I still mentioned there, but that is the main kind of tie. There is so many things that the Tower of London has had with English history. A lot of people get crowned in there. It's just, there's nothing too specific that's really, this is House of Lancaster, apart from Henry VI's assassination. So if you want to hear more about it, go back into the previous episode if you haven't heard that. Okay,
yeah. So did you mention the Tower of London is in London, right? In case that's not clear to anyone.
It is the Tower of London. You know what? Actually, one little tidbit of there is, so my grandpa was actually, so we had, obviously, after World War II, we had military service for everyone. My grandpa was stationed in the Tower of London.
Really? There you go.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. That's a cool place to be stationed. If you've never seen the Tower, to be honest, all of the buildings we've talked about, at some point, if you're just listening, I consider a little Google. But Tower of London, especially, I just think it's awesome, and you can take a little trip along the River Thames, like on a boat, and you can look at it from the Thames, which is a very touristy thing to do. It's very cool. I think.
The armory in there to look at.
There's an armory. Did you say?
There's a good armory within the Tower of London.
I've never been inside.
Have you not? Oh,
this is what I mean. Skillionaire and Monkey Nuts on tour.
Inside.
We need to go to all these places. It'll be awesome. But anyway. All right. And the next one is myself. So we touched on this earlier already, so there's not loads to add. But this is the Wonder Cathedral of St. Thomas, or in real life, it's called Canterbury Cathedral. Which is, as you can imagine, if they chose it as the Wonder in the game, it's a very stunning looking building. It's very, I don't know enough about architecture to describe it, but it's very spiky. And it's it's
Gothic.
Gothic, yeah, Gothic. It's very Gothic. It's very cool. It's in Kent in real life, which is in the southeast of England. And I didn't know this until, honestly, this is maybe kind of, anyone religious would think maybe I was an idiot for not knowing this, but I genuinely did not know that it is the spiritual centre of the Church of England. So it is the seat of the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is the highest Monkey Nuts, help me.
Ecclesiarch.
Ecclesiastical.
Ecclesiarch.
No.
Ecclesiastical.
Ecclesiastical. Mate, this podcast is going to have a running theme of not being able to pronounce words, isn't it?
This is the one we should be able to do as well. This is
our word. Ecclesiastical.
Wait till we get to Marlians.
Yeah, Marlians, God. So the Archbishop of Canterbury, the highest ecclesiastical authority in England. So this is basically the church's capital church in this country. Just kind of cool. And there's no direct significance to the House of Lancaster, so there's not tons to dive into for that reason. But it was around, so we can give it a pass for that. It's their wonder because it did exist, unlike Wynguard. Was it Wynguard? Yeah, unlike Wynguard, which did not exist.
Yeah.
And I think Henry IV.
Henry IV was buried.
Yeah, Henry IV had a pilgrimage to there, and there's a story about him apparently collapsing mid-prayer, which, when his health was getting bad. So there's not much else here other than the fact that it's a stunning building, and what Monkey Nuts added earlier, which is that actually Henry IV was buried there. I wonder if our two stories are connected. Because my story is him.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
My story is him collapsing.
We just actually touched the surface because we didn't really go into the depth of it because I was more looking at the building itself rather than them.
Yeah.
I was looking at something else. It's just kind of connected together, and maybe there's more story to this. Go in your own time. Go have a more look at Henry IV or how it's connected to Canterbury Cathedral.
I wanted to spend like more focus on the Lancaster specific landmarks, like Lancaster Castle and King's College. But that's cool. And I actually have a bonus structure I'd like to talk to you guys about. This one's, if you knew the others, well done. But I'm telling you, you do not know this one. Get ready. If you do, let me know. I'll give you big respect points. So, the normal keep that you can construct as the English civilization and the House of Lancaster civilization also has inspiration from the real world, as everything would do in order to do something justice. And it is based on an actual castle, and it's in Wales. So this castle, oh god, no, the pronunciation's fucking not help me. Okay, this is a place in the north.
You looked it up. I've never heard this castle before. I'm assuming it's Harlech.
Not that one. So it's in Gwynedd.
Gwynedd
in northwest Wales. And funnily enough, maybe by coincidence, maybe because they reused the asset from the English civilization, but it's actually very significant to the House of Lancaster, this specific castle. So Harlech Castle, which is what it's called, I can't remember if I said that. Harlech Castle, it became the primary Lancastrian bastion in Wales. And so it was like their main spot, and it played a key military role and symbolic role because it symbolized Welsh Lancastrian unity. And I just remember I forgot to say something about Clifford's Tower. Remind me to go back to it. But yeah, it symbolised that Welsh Lancastrian unity, and it continues. So it was held by a commander, and continuing the theme of not being able to pronounce things. All right, this is the hardest one we've done yet. I tried to look it up and practice it. The Welsh commander's name was Dafydd ap Ian, or sometimes pronounced Ianian, and I'm not sure exactly, but let me spell it for you, for those of you who know about Welsh. Okay, it's Dafydd. His first name.
That's definitely Dafydd.
And then AP, and then the surname is Leuan, which I thought was like Leuan. But it's not Le. when I looked it up, it's Ewan or something like that. I can't remember.
Is it Ewan?
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
But anyway, this Welsh commander held this, as I said, really important to House of Lancaster and during the Wars of the Roses time period. But other than that, there's nothing else of note relating to that or the other buildings, because Monkey Nuts, I did actually spend a little moment looking up, like, the barracks, the archery range, I'll just very quickly, just for those of you who are feeling super geeky, the barracks is technically a bit historically inaccurate because there was no one building where these troops would sleep. They would actually sleep in their own homes or in their own tents, and they would then come in the morning to join the rally point in order to go and fight. So technically there's no barracks, but I think that's fine. Also, siege workshop. There wasn't technically like particular buildings where like people would construct these, trebuchets and stuff like that. It was just more that there were some people who were experts in siege engineering, and they would, build on site basically. But yeah.
Yeah, they're more constructed. That's what I say. That's something I learned as well. Everything was normally constructed in the field.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have wagons of stuff which was pre-done, and they'd have to reconstruct it in the field. Like I find that quite interesting. It was like carts and carts of these.
It's really cool. It's
siege
really
engines.
Cool. I just wanted to just a little addition to Clifford Tower, which, if you remember, is Berkshire. And something I actually forgot to say is that despite its location, I mentioned that it's in York, but despite its location, the Clifford family were actually allies of the Lancastrians. And there were loads of fights during the Wars of the Roses over the keep, and whether the Yorkists would have it or the Lancastrians would have it. And whoever held it basically held the region. So it had strategic and symbolic significance in that way. And again, the significance to the Lancastrians is that the Cliffords backed him. So that's why, despite it being in York, it had a good time there. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to hand over to the last building, the Monkey Nuts, which is the Manors.
A manor is the kind of the heart of how feudalism and manorialism worked in England and across actually most of Europe as well. So the structure is a manor house, a village, land at its core, but they can also have like other things like a mill, a church, that sort of thing. So they're generally quite small settlements. And then they'd be self-sufficient. The lord of the manor would settle disputes. If sometimes it'd be kind of a lord of a manor wouldn't be there, they'd have like someone they kind of report into them. It'd be the one who now makes all the decisions while I'm gone. Feudalism, in essence, is the top-down structure. It's the political structure, so it's like a top-down view. But whereas manorialism is the kind of economic counterpart. So in England at the time, there'll be manorialism and feudalism kind of working kind of snake-like together. They're both happening at the same time. So manorialism is it's the economic counterpart. So the lord controls the land and the benefits, and the serfs work the land. That's the structure of manorialism. Okay. It's the economic structure of it. So, and the fact that they were generally serfs rather than freemen. So peasants are broken down into serfs and freemen. Serfs being you not a million miles away from being a slave. In essence, they're bound to land. They can't leave the manor. They are bound to that lord. They're bound to that land. Their kids are bound to that land. They work the land, and they're also feudalism's kind of got a military aspect, whereas manorialism is more of again economic.
Okay. Well, that sounds quite fitting for what the game's chosen to do with it, generating resources for you and stuff like that. All right. Awesome.
I think it more treats you as the king, so it's generating resources because the manor then pays.
Nice. Good feeling.
Open field system. So if you actually want to bring back up the images. So this is just a really, so if for people who are only listening, all it is kind of it's a little drawing. It's got a village in the center of it. It's then got a field to the south with winter corn, a field to the top right of it, which is fallow, field to the top left, which is spring corn, and then a field further left of all those, which is common grazing, and then the meadow at the bottom.
It looks like a map.
It's basically a map. It's a very basic. There was obviously a million different variations, but it's kind of a basic idea of how the structure of a manor would look. And somewhere within that will be also the manor house, obviously.
But this spring corn, winter corn, this is like farming, right?
Crop rotations, exactly.
Right, okay.
So this is kind of, it happened between the 9th and the 19th century. Actually into the 20th century in some of like Russia and I believe Turkey. But don't hold me to that one. I think it's those two places that held it a bit longer. But everything was done by this open field system. So the land was divided into 2 or 3 fields, you can see here, and then subdivided into land, separated into strips called acres. And now I'm going to give you the most confusing definition of what an acre is to the old thing. It's 4 rods by a furlong.
Oh my god, 4 rods by a furlong. Of course. 4
rods by a furlong.
Okay.
So 4 rods is about 20 meters, and a furlong is about 200 meters. So it's these thin strips.
Okay.
It's subdivided by, and that is supposedly the amount of land a man with a team of 8 oxen could plow in one day. Okay. So that's 1 acre. All right. That's the old definition of an acre. But apparently, there's also this definition of 20 meters by 200 meters. There's been 5 variations of sizes because it apparently depended on how easy to plow this field was. So if this is an easy to plow field, it's a bigger size. If it's harder to plow, it's a smaller size. So
very practical. I guess.
So confusing definition, but it's a field divided into different acres, different strips of land.
Okay.
And then it would be communal. So in this period, farming is all communal. So what was grown, who was working where, was all decided by the manor lord and the manor itself. So there may be input from the peasantry, but it was the manor lord who went, we're doing the final decision. We're farming this strip of land is yours. That strip of land is yours. These it could be all spread around the different fields. So then the next one was called Condensed Land Practices. So this one was a little bit tougher to find. And I think so. I found some kind of disputing sources on what this might be. So I think the closest thing I can find is it kind of relates to the open field system where the peasantry work on specific strips of land. But what they did was, rather than being a random strips of land, they kind of condensed which strips of land you were working on. So rather than having to be like working in different parts of the fields, these are my section, all my acres are together. So I know that once I finish with this one, I'm doing this one next. It made it a lot easier that if someone went slightly over, because apparently it was really strict on that. If you went over into someone else's section, you could be like punished severely for it. So
severely punished, of course.
It's severely
the
punished,
Middle Ages.
of course.
It's only ever going to be severe, right? Okay, gotcha.
And the final topic was one I got, Scutage it's called, or I think it's pronounced Scutage.
Go on.
So this is money paid by a vassal to his lord in lieu of military service. Now, Scutage was actually obsolete by the time the House of Lancaster took the throne. So it's also the final one. So it makes sense because it's of what the function is. It's paid by a manor lord to your lord, so you can get why it's gold, but it's actually obsolete. It shouldn't be in the game.
Don't tell the haters though, man. They're gonna tell the devs to nerf and remove Scutage, and then as a Lancaster main now, they're gonna take away my ability to generate passive gold. It's yeah. But to close out, I have a very short bonus topic for you, Monkey Nuts. And technically, it's off topic. I haven't done too well at sticking on topic this episode. I confess.
Jump to the revert screen.
Yeah. So, back in the day, right? So this behaviour that I'm about to describe was mostly phased out by the time of the Lancastrians. But back in the day, when armies would show up outside of a castle or something like that, something that was really common was that these lot would be like yelling from the top. There's bits with like the
ramparts.
Yeah, is it called ramparts?
Ramparts,
yeah. They'd be like yelling, they'd be like, "Hey, you guys, this and that." They'll be jeering and yelling medieval insults at them, and it was quite common for them to pull down their trousers and show their butts, and they would literally fart in the direction of the enemy. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
how are they going to hear that?
Yeah,
unless these are some impressive fart. I mean, maybe it's a lot of beans.
Yeah,
they load the upper beans.
And all the lads, remember they just eat like porridge and stuff back then. I don't know, but all the lads would be like laughing. And like, they take it in turns, like running, jumping, and like showing their butts and stuff like that. Obviously, they don't get hit with an arrow and stuff, right? So it's just like it was like this big sort of shall we say, unprofessional behaviour. The reason I say by the time of the Lancastrians it was mostly phased out is because the militia and stuff were a little bit more disciplined, and there were like consequences for doing things like, for example, if your commander said don't touch the innocents in the village, whatever, like if anyone touches them you're in huge trouble, like that was the kind of stuff they would say in order to win the support of the local people and things. And so yeah, people really did have to follow rules, but that doesn't mean it never happened. And I just thought that story was really funny because it's definitely the kind of thing I could imagine getting Larry and doing myself. So and when I said this to my girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, men have just never changed, have they?"
That is true. And to be fair, we'd still find that hilarious.
Yes. So that's my bonus topic for today. Farting off of the castle tops.
So mine's actually way more civilized, my one today. So mine is actually reverting back to the open field system. So interesting enough, I said it died out in the 19th century.
Yeah.
There's actually a village in Northamptonshire called Laxton where they still use that system to this day. It was originally like owned by the crown, and they still had to they would still there'd be fines if they didn't actually follow the correct ruling of the Scutage. But nowadays it's been taken over by a charity in essence, or like a foundation, and they're trying to keep it alive. So it's more like a modern day museum to this point.
That's cool.
But there is still to this day open field system happening in England.
For a moment, I thought you were going to say it was taken over by a private company. I was like, mate, what hasn't?
It technically is private, but it's more of a foundation than a.
Yeah.